Consider this. Each year, more people die in the United States from medical errors in hospitals than from highway accidents, breast cancer, or AIDS. So workers at one Boston hospital have decided to take matters into their own hands. And as Susan Lasovich reports, they're giving their emergency room a technology transplant.
What I've made up is a chart here to help illustrate how it's going to work. Every doctor has been designated a color.
It might look organized on the set of ER.
What the hell are all those people doing out there?
But the white board that helps doctors and nurses keep track of patients in the emergency room is as outdated as a lobotomy.
Before, we just had no clue. It sounds terrible, and we used to make all these marks on the board. And now, basically, we go up to the dashboard, and you can see it right there.
The old whiteboard where you just, with a dry eraser, write everybody's name and their chief complaint, and it was a mess.
And they're tough to update.
The thing is that I believe this guy's been waiting the longest.
So some techies with medical degrees joined forces at Boston's Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. The prescription? The nation's first wireless emergency room. The main component is the electronic dashboard. It's a 4-foot wireless plasma screen that replaced the old white board.
Look, you also can tell here if the patient's had their x-rays.
Initials represent the patient's name, so anonymity is preserved. And the board is color-coded, red for the most severe case and green for mild.
As soon as I walk by and take one look, I see a color changes and I know that something's available. Or if the x-ray is done and now it's red, or maybe radiology did something critical on a CAT scan. I know just by looking on one line.
A patient is first met by clerks who load the information onto a laptop. That info beams to the dashboard. As doctors examine the patient, they enter their test orders and diagnoses into computers or handheld devices.
While I'm talking to a patient, or if I find a specific finding, I could enter it into this and make it part of their record.
Which means no more calling in for test results and no more overhead paging. Now that doctors carry special cell phones.
That's my hope. Is to have sort of one-stop shopping, everything you need in the emergency department right there.
The system is also a great learning tool for residents.
Unfortunately, we don't have all of medicine in our heads, but if you go to emergency medicine and we just have a question, we can just look at the latest information.
The heartbeat of the system lives a mile down the road in the tech center, where Dr. John Halamka maintains the system. He got the idea in part from an airport.
Imagine that every time you wanted to know about a flight or a gate, you had to ask someone. You'd say, well, that's crazy. Why not have a television monitor where I can look at the gate, look at the flight, figure out its status? Is it early? Is it late? Is it at the gate? Well, simply put, an emergency department is a lot like an airport, except that you have patients that are moving from place to place.
The terminals in the emergency department are linked to the hospital's central database, so doctors and nurses have access to medical histories going back 30 years.
Every day, we move about 40 libraries of Congress worth of information through our data center. So we have 8,000 PCs. And so imagine what it's like to back up your own computer. Well, this is what it's like to back up 8,000 computers. Everything is done with robotic arms and robotic tapes.
And in case the system goes down, there are safety mechanisms in place.
So, this is how a data center is built. We, under the floor, have all our fire protection. So, if there's fire, we don't want to dump water on these machines. So we have a chemical under the floor that removes the oxygen from the room and puts out the fire. We want to build massive redundancy. So the application is running on 4 identical servers. For the emergency department application to go down, every one of these servers would have to fail simultaneously.
But the lifespan of state-of-the-art equipment is short.
Every 3 or 4 years, we take the old technology and take it to the dump.
The old way would often result in too few nurses and not enough beds. Beth Israel would be forced to divert patients to other hospitals.
Imagine now if we can take a half an hour off the experience, the stay of 52,000 people. We can actually create significant amounts of increased capacity in our hospital. And in fact, we've looked at the return on investment of doing this kind of thing, and it's nearly $1 million a year.
Developing the system cost Beth Israel $200,000. It costs another $20,000 a year to run. But so far, there is no money savings to the patient, just time savings. Palamka says the system hasn't crashed yet, even with 7 Boston area brownouts, although they do get an average of 10 hackers a day trying to break into the system.
This device is our counterpane security device. And this device looks for people who are trying to guess passwords, trying to use hacking and cracking tools, and immediately puts a stop to them.
And that's just what the doctor ordered. But will this new system help Dr. Nathanson get more sleep?
For everyone else, yes. For myself, no. I still get pages at all hours.
For Business Unusual, Susan Lasovich, CNN Financial News.
Dr. Larry Nathanson plans to adapt the dashboard for use in disaster response. Emergency workers currently keep records on paper, but data could be recorded via satellite network laptops to provide real-time updates to a central command post. Now, that data could be analyzed during and after a disaster to help spot patterns, which could, for example, suggest the use of biological or chemical weapon.